So the Champions League is in the trophy cabinet at Anfield. The Club World Cup is there as well, Ali, and likely the Premier League this season. Could this be the start of a Liverpool dominance?
Could be, but they got to win their league multiple times. Now, if the big conversation is that they haven't been able to close out the deal in 30 years, then, well, first, let's win it this year.
Yeah.
Let's assume that it's over. And I think we can all agree that it's just about over, if not 100% over. However, that means that if you're going to be a dominant team, a dynasty, you're going to have to win it on back-to-back years and back-to-back years, and then it looks more like Juventus or PSG or Bayern Munich or Barcelona, that sort of dominance. Real Madrid as well. You also have to be a major player in Champions League for years to come. For those things to happen, the makeup of Liverpool has to remain intact. And that's when it gets tricky, because players have a tendency that when things start going very well and you're winning all these things and you got this magical, special feeling within the locker room, eventually somebody's going to say, well, wait a minute, I want to get mine. And they start pulling in your own direction. You're an independent contractor after all, and so you want to maximize your earning potential. And so I want to get mine, he wants to get his, and when that starts to happen and people start pulling in different directions, then it's not quite that magical feeling anymore, and therefore teams are not quite at the level that they should be. That's the struggle for Jurgen Klopp and the challenge for Jurgen Klopp within Liverpool. Outside of Liverpool, you have to think that teams like Manchester City, Manchester United, Chelsea, so on and so forth, that they at some point will be major players again. Manchester City, let's not forget, a year ago and 2 years ago were setting records. And so they are a year removed from having set all the standards that force Liverpool to match this level.
Gold standard. Yep.
Correct. And so they are not that far off of that. And so Manchester City will have a bounce back, and so they will be a major player once again. So you could argue that actually in terms of dynasty in the Premier League over the last decade, it's more likely to have this discussion about Manchester City than you would have about Liverpool. However, you framed it as the start of a dynasty, the start of domination, potentially, but keeping this feeling, this special something about this group is the key to making sure that this continues from here on out.
I want to talk to you about a couple of things that I thought were very pertinent that you said, but before we do that, I want to take a look at some of the top teams and the trophies that have been won by some of these teams. And we're talking about dynasties or domination or whatever. Look, Barca, PSG, Bayern, Real Madrid and Juventus. Now, they were all wonderful. A lot of them were just miles ahead of anything that they had to beat at the time. For me, is this not more of a double domination? Because you mentioned City. If City get themselves two world-class defenders, Laporte plus one other, I don't think there's much between them and Liverpool, but I think there's a big gap between them and the rest. Can we enlarge this and say this could be a period of dominance by Liverpool and of Manchester City in England, and the rest have got a lot of work to do?
Yes, you can say that, but if we get into that conversation, we no longer have a dynasty. We no longer have an individual domination. We have two teams, La Liga essentially, that are sharing what would be the titles. One year you win it, I'll win it the next, you win it the next, I'll win it the next, and it's fine, and we'll have a great rivalry, and everybody else is playing catch-up. I don't think that that's quite how it's going to work out. There is the potential of at some point Pep Guardiola walking away from Manchester City. How does that affect Manchester City in the future? What do they become? There's also the potential that at some point, God forbid, Manchester United actually goes back to their standard, to their level. They're far away from that, but who knows? And so they become Manchester United that you think and come to appreciate and come to love if you're a Manchester United fan. Well, they will be a major player. There are many teams here that could potentially compete, but Liverpool and Manchester City, to some degree, have set a different standard for themselves. And it is because of Manchester City that Liverpool now feels like they have to play at that level. And now Liverpool surpassed Manchester City, and now Manchester City will have to respond to that. But when you have this conversation, then I don't think is then a dynasty that we're talking about. It's a different conversation altogether. It's not one team. It's two teams that are pushing each other, and so then it becomes more about how can they be the best version of themselves compete against the rest, but make sure that they're better than their immediate rival. And in this case, it's Liverpool and Manchester City.
Finally, Jurgen Klopp has signed a new deal. He'll be there until at least 2024. We saw what Sir Alex Ferguson did at Man United. There came a time where he realised he had to not start again, but he had to change things. Can you see this Liverpool setup with Klopp and with the players that he have? As you said earlier, if everyone remains happy, can you see them winning multiple Premier League titles?
I do. And I think what they have done very well is, so they have a core group of players and they've been adding pieces. Yes, pieces that fit into what they want to do and the personality of Jurgen Klopp and the personality of the team. And that has worked very well. Now, we are one catastrophic injury to Virgil van Dijk to now having Dejan Lovren and Joel Matip being your center back pairing. And so my issue when we start sort of projecting into big things and big picture and what they can be and historically important this team is going to be, we have to take into consideration that this has been essentially a year and a half for Liverpool.
True.
A year and a half. So dynasties are far more impressive than a year and a half. This has been very good for Liverpool. They've been excellent. They've been perhaps the best club team in the world, but it's a year and a half. And even last year, they didn't win their own league. They won Champions League, but they didn't win their league. And so you have to see, if you're going to call it what we started the conversation with, domination and dynasty, you have to see that team winning their league, Champions League, their league. And with that sort of consistency where now Premier League becomes something that you expect from Liverpool every time that they start a season. It's like they are the favorites. This year was like that. Last year wasn't like that. Next year there'll be a response from Manchester City. And between them two, they're probably going to take away from each other, but at the same time, they're going to push each other above everybody else.
I think for Liverpool fans, just enjoy it and appreciate it as well, because Man United fans had it good, and they wish they could be in Liverpool's shoes right now.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.